Hello, and welcome back to our series where we are building a people and culture management system. We're currently working on our compensation dashboard, particularly in our market comparison or analysis section. This series is brought to you by Prairie HR Solutions. My name is Jake Finger, founder and principal consultant of Prairie HR Solutions. And where we left off in our last video was we populated, after we calculated, of course, we calculated and populated the quartile percentages 10, 25, 75, 90. We found the median, and then we found the minimum pay and the max pay of whatever this data was. So currently, this is all employees, and that's what this reflects here. So if we were to go up and select a job title, this would populate, and then also this would populate. The other thing that we did was we took our median value here and set the value of this slide bar to that value there. Now, the thought behind this, and this may or may not work, we'll have to see how this works out once we get the market data inputted in here, was we want to be able to visualize where this is placed in the range as opposed to the market. That way it just offers a very quick glance at alignment, if it's higher, lower, sideways, or whatever. Now we may have to do some additional pieces there to account for our average experience, and we're going to have to do a little bit of work to our data set as well, which we'll get into in a second. Now, what I would like to do here initially is to simply populate this data here by whatever this job title is. So in order to do that, we need to grab first this job title, this value inside this input field here, and then we need to filter this data by whatever that value is. Now, there's a little bit of differences between real data and this data that I have here. So this data that I have here, I have not gone in and, our data is randomized and fictitious. So I did not go in and do, verify position descriptions or job analysis to ensure that our jobs are aligned with this jobs, and I didn't weight that data or anything like that. Obviously, if you were getting salary survey, you would do that. And if you were getting this done for you, then these job titles here would match your job titles. And these would be weighted and of course like that, but they're not. So we're just going to make do with what we got just to get it functional. And then if you wanted to use this, then you would just populate this data with your own data there. So my thought is, one, we want to be able to grab essentially all of our average, we're wanting to grab all of our areas and then average that and then find it. Now, if we were doing this, and this is how this will probably end up, if we were doing this for, an actual operation, we would then say, okay, great, we have all of our areas, but now Dane County may not be the same as Wood County in Wisconsin, and Wisconsin is obviously not the same as Illinois or Indiana or whatnot. So we would want to filter that data down to an area that we would want to match. And then in addition to that, we would also want to filter down. I know, especially for me, I would like to know if I have, say, a human resource generalist or a manager. I want to know how they're paid in relation to the other managers. But then I also would like to know if we're paying that entire class appropriately, both laterally as well as vertically. So are we paying our managers the same as what other people are paying their directors? Or are we paying our managers the same as they would be paying, say, human resource business partners or whatnot? So I do like looking laterally and vertically as well. One, because it makes the overall compensation picture for the organization a lot more clear and aligned and honestly sustainable. because you could run into a time to where people don't want to take a promotion from, say, an HR manager to an HR director because they're already making a ridiculous amount of money as a manager and would take a cut in pay for an HR director position. And that's, you would think that that is an extreme, but it's depending on how long that person's been in that position, it may not be as extreme or uncommon as you think. And then it just creates a cascading mess from there. So first, I would like to come back over here, and I would like to give us the ability just for a placeholder, the ability to filter those pieces. So we're going to need some select boxes. And what I'm thinking is we have this min and max pay. Now, obviously, we're going to need to do some stylization so we can bring the visual attention to these drop boxes, but we'll do that after we get it functional. So I'd like to take some select boxes here and put it underneath our market pay, because that way we can filter it. Maybe put a span here saying filter by drop down box, and then maybe a calculate button. That way a user would actually go in and manually select these if they chose to then change this data. So let's jump over and look at our total rewards page HTML here. And where we're wanting to put this is right here. So let's create another row. Let's go div class equals row. Now this row is essentially Bootstrap language. I hate to say it that way, but that's kind of what it is. Since we're using Bootstrap as a front end toolkit, these are the classes that they're calling it. So we want to close that out, and we'll make sure that we identify this so we don't lose track of it. Worst thing ever is you have an empty or a misaligned div, and then it just makes your entire layout look kind of screwy. Let's go over to our Bootstrap and see what it is that we have here. So let's open this page up, and let me share this page with y'all. So what we have is we essentially want two drop-down boxes or select boxes. Here's our selects, and we want a span in there because that's kind of our theme. This just looks like regular drop-down boxes. If I remember right, it was an input group that we were looking at. Okay, yep, button. Yeah, here we go. Drop down, we don't want that. Don't want that. Here we go. Not a button. Not that. We don't need a file. Here we go. Something like that. That's all we need. So we need to grab this, and these will be our two, and then we'll just grab a button and put a button in here. So the first thing is we need to create another div, and we'll call this class column, and we'll make this column, I don't know, let's do 2 because this is going to be the indicator. So let's give ourselves another space there so we can fill it. And this will be column. And then we'll need to do another one. And let's make this column, let's make it 4. And then we'll close that out because the idea, you'll see here in just a sec, let me get done typing this. The idea is to have, if this is a complete row right here, we want to have it separated by 1 column, 2 column, 3 column, 4 column, 5 column. And then we want to span here to say filter by drop-down box, area, drop-down box, job, drop-down box, button to do something. So that's kind of the thought we have here. So what we can do is now take this again, this whole thing again, and copy it here for that third column, and then we'll grab this span here and put a span in here. We'll change it. This won't be market pay. This will be filter market by. And we can change this later. It all depends on how this is going to look. Filter span. I doubt we'll ever change this, but we'll give it an ID anyway. And then we are going to need another column. And this column, remember we have to make it equal to 12 because that's how Bootstrap is. So 2, 8, so let's leave that as 2. We'll see how that looks. And then this will be our button. Okay, so let's go over to our Bootstrap page here and let's find our button. Now remember, we CSS'd our button to make it fit what we want. So we'll just grab the secondary here because I think that's the one that we changed. I can't remember. We'll grab the secondary and see how it looks. If not, we'll change it to fit what we did. And this is going to be, let's just say, calculate. And let's see the spacing on this. Let's see if we squish this too much. Okay, so this is what we have here. This shouldn't be div. This should be row. Okay, let's make sure that our divs align. Okay, they do. So let's save this and then see how that looks. Okay, so I refreshed it. And let's look at what this looks like. Okay. I mean, that's fine. We'll definitely have to do some styling here. Looks like this market data needs some spacing, but we got the point. Let's take care of this gap. I'm not sure what's going on there. But I mean, that'll work. That'll work for now. So let's go see what that gap's about. Okay, so we are adding an MB3 here and an MB3 there. We don't need that because we're already adding that border margin up here. So that should take care of that space. Let's make sure that we're not doing like a margin top here. Nope. Okay, so that should take care of that space. So let's refresh it and see how that looks. You definitely don't want to forget about that. Kind of like an eyesore. Yep, there we go. Now it's even. So that's good. Okay, so now what we're going to do is let's think about how it is that we want to filter this. So initially, just straight off the bat, we want to filter this by whatever job title is there. So say we pick Human Resources Generalist. So what we're wanting to do is, after this is populated, just simply grab this and then go to our sheet, filter that data, and then return this stuff. So we're going to need to do quite a bit of stuff over on our Google Apps Script side to make this happen. One, our data is coming as Human Resources General Lists. So we should probably name that correctly. So let's go over there and do that. What we could, however, do is, depending on how you get your data, you may need to map this like Human HR or HR General List equals HR General Lists. But for the sake of just getting this done, and since this is just placeholder data anyway, I mean, it's real data, but it just doesn't align to our fictitious company. Let's just do a Control F, and we will find all Human Resources general lists and replace with Human Resources Generalist. If I can spell it right. Okay, there we go. And we don't want to do all sheets. We just want to do this sheet. Replace all. Okay, good. So we replaced all 4 of them. So now when we filter by that, we'll actually find that. So let's come over here to our code again, and let's go to our analytics code. Now we have this get market data already filled out. This market data is pulling all those values there. And we were going to go by the SOC code, but in order to use the SOC code, and if you've ever looked at DOL or ONET or something like that, they categorize all of their positions by this sort of SOC code, if you will. So we could essentially drill into that SOC code if we were mapping, and you can if you want, but really what I'm going to do is I'm just going to search and filter directly by the position and the county. So first, let's create a couple variables just as placeholders, because we're not going to pass anything through this yet, but we just want to get this function working. And let's call the area, let's think of an area that we want. Let's call it Dane County, because I only pull the data from Wisconsin, and that is one of our counties here. And then let's do a job title, or job, and let's just say this job is Human Resources Generalist. Okay, so now what we can do is we can then create another variable and call that variable filtered market data. And we can take this market data now and filter it to create ourselves a new array, so to speak. And we've done this numerous times, so you should know what I'm doing here. And we want to filter it by row. And we are going to look at, let's first look at the area. So our area inside our sheet, when this comes to us, it's going to be in an array, so it's got to be index based. 0, 1, 2, 3. So this is going to be row 3. So we're going to look at every single row, and then every single row we're going to dig into that third index, and if that third index equals the area, that's what we want to filter it and return. So let's log this filtered market data out and see what we got. We'll run it. And as you can see, it is pulling every row that has Dane County in that third index. So now what we could do in addition to this is then we could take this filtered market data and then filter it by the job. We could do that, or what we could do is, if you think about this, this is a condition. And if you think of how we check multiple conditions in an if statement, we would use either and or something like that. And we can do the same thing here. So we can say row whatever, we'll have to find it, is equal to the job, which is this human resources generalist. So if we were to come over to our spreadsheet and find that index or that column that has this job title in it, would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then change this to 7, then what it would do is it would filter if the area is Dane County in this index 3 and human resources is the value in index number 7. So let's run this and see. Now it should search that and we'll see how much data we have for Dane County as human resources generalist. Okay, so we only have one, which I believe is correct in Dane County. And it returns that row of data. It filters that out. So let's find something that it has maybe more. So let's change Dane County to Wisconsin and then run it. So it's returning one row with human resources generalist. for the state of Wisconsin. So let's see what is actually happening here. Let's make sure that we only have one row of data, because if that's the case, let's expand this out here. We may need more. Okay, human resources, generalist. Okay, so yep, it does look like that's it. That's it. So let's actually grab something different here. Let's grab accountant and auditors. We'll have to change this, obviously, to match what our data is, but I'm curious to see if it's returning multiple rows. So what I did is I just changed it to accounting and auditors. Okay, so we only have one accountant and auditors for the whole state of Wisconsin inside of our data. And that's probably true because we have our state, but then it's broken up into counties. So now what we could do to open this up is say all counties by simply just removing this and running it. And then we should have a lot more. And there we go. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to think, and this is going to be a different if statement here. We're going to have to think of if our data here, we'll have to think of something here. If this is like all areas, then we just want to pass the title. And if it's all relevant jobs, then we want to pass the title and then whatever that is. So we're going to have to do some interesting if statements. Nothing as complex as we had to do up here, because that was, I mean, our if statements got really robust and complex up here, but it's still going to take some if statement complexity here to do that. So let's actually go back here and change this choose and choose to something that makes sense. So we have our first box here, and this ID is not going to be input group select. Let's make this market area filter, and then that will be this. We have by area, we'll say all areas will be the default, and we want to try and stick with all, because if you've watched the previous videos, we used all as a mechanism to select everything, and if it was all, then it just did the base value. So to keep ourselves from having to do additional work, let's try and use all as most as possible. So this one here would be all comparable jobs. Let's see if that fits. And this one here, our ID, we can give market job filter. And then this will be market job filter. Okay, so let's see how this is going to look. Oh, no, this isn't this. This should be, this is our title of our span. What am I thinking? This should be here on our selected. That's the default. And this should be by job. And this should be our default value here. And this should just be by area. Okay, there we go. Had a little brain lapse there for a second. So now let's see how this looks. We'll refresh it. Okay, good. All comparable jobs, all areas. So now if we were to just leave this and not touch it, then it will populate there. But if we were to select something here and then hit calculate, then it could do things. So we're really only going to need 4 if statements, maybe 5. but that'll be the else. Okay, good. So now let's grab this information right here. So what we need is essentially all our areas and all of our comparable jobs. So what we're going to need is essentially all of this and all of this. And what we need to do with that, right, is we need to essentially create another function here, because that's get market data, and we're going to need to get market drop downs. So let's create another one and say get market DD. And let's just take this, because we're going to need this, and let's put this in a global variable, and we'll put this in a global variable up here. And we can clean up our code here later, and we'll make this a constant, because that's never going to change. That way we can use it in all of our functions. And let's scroll back up here and find our drop downs here. So this is all of our data here, and that's going to be categorized. So what we're essentially going to do is we are going to grab our data, and we'll find that actual sheet. And we can use the same exact thing, filter the string. They should be the same exact length, but we'll do the same piece here. So let's just grab this, grab one, and you'll notice that we returned an array that we sorted each one of these. So that's the same thing that we'll do. And then to get the information that we need, we'll just access that 0 and that 1. Just to keep it consistent with our code, to make it read the same. Anytime that you write code, you should keep it similar to where if you are using one method, you use that method consistently throughout. I know we kind of bounced around, but that is to give different code snippets in different ways. But if you were writing this for real, you want to pick a method and then just stick with it. So we are going to first, let's not use our division last row. Let's use our area. And this will be not our web data. This will be our market data. Now, our range is not going to be F. Our range is going to be D. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you change the data inside this sheet, you're going to need to update your code, because D may not be D anymore. So let's look at D1 all the way through. So this is going to be D1 to D. That includes that header. So we'll have to make sure we take care of it. And this is not going to be division last row. This is going to be that. And our area last, and it's going to filter by the string. It's going to find the last row with data in it. And then it's going to find the length, and then that's what we're going to pass here. And then we're going to subtract that 1, of course, take care of that header, and this is going to be market data. And this is going to be area drop down. Okay, so what do we have here? So we are declaring a variable, and we're grabbing our market data at the column D1 all the way through to the end of the D. We're getting the values of those. So if we were to log this piece out, let's log out area, what is it? Area last row. Let's log that out, and then we will log area last, and then we will log out area drop down. So let's save this and then run it. So you can see, just as a refresher, what this is actually doing. Market data is not defined. Lies. Let's come up here and see what it's actually called. Market sheet. Okay, so you weren't lying to me. All right, so this is going to be market sheet, and then this is going to be market sheet. Okay, so now let's try that again. Oh, market data is this. There it is. Alrighty, so let's scroll up here and see what we got. So this is this first one, this last row here. It's going to column D and getting all the values of that just straight down. That's the range. As you can see, it's putting it in a two-dimensional array because we're using get values, and that is our header, of course, and then it's getting every single cell all the way down, just all the way through, and it just keeps right on going. And then this area last is taking this and then finding the very last row with a string in it. And since it's set as plain text or text, this string is going to work in it. And then it's finding the length and it's returning that. So that means that we have 3,299 rows of data in that sheet, which if you watch the previous videos, that's exactly how many rows we have in that sheet. And then we're taking the sheet and getting a range. And unfortunately, we're going to have to change this because we're not starting at row 2. Well, we are starting at row 2, but we're not starting at column 6. So let's look at what column this area name is. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, not the array index, the column. So that's going to be 4 and not 6. That's why it's returning this one, detailed major minor. As you can see, detail major minor, because it's looking at column 6. We're not wanting column 6, we're wanting column 4. And then for the length of the rows, we are wanting however many length this is, that 3,299. And then we're only grabbing one column and then getting the values. So let's run this again. And then as you can see, it's getting all of them. Now, when you look at this, you can see that there is a lot of duplicates. And we're going to have to take care of this because we don't want to essentially populate a drop down of Dane County 500 times and then Dodge County 400 times. We just want that to appear once. And we took care of that earlier. And where we did this before, and we did it up in our other drop down boxes. And we used, if you remember right, ... new set. So we created a shallow copy of our array, and then we did a new set based on that, and that actually cleared up. Here we go. Just like this. So we can grab this and copy it. And what this new set does is it cuts out all the duplicate information. So let's just copy this and we will tailor it to what it is that we need. The great thing about when you're writing code is once you get it done, just remember what you did when, and then you can just copy it. So let's create another variable here. And let's create a constant, not area drop down. Let's change this to area. No, we can call it, let's call it area DD. And then what that's going to be equal to is we're going to need to, one, create a new set, a loose copy, and a new set will clean that, and then we'll map it based on the row that we need it to be. So if you can look up here, where we got this thing from, it is going to be, so this row is based on the index that we found that item at. And that index will be, since we are looking at our area, it's going to be this third index. So first, we need to create a shallow copy, and this is going to be a new set. Now remember, this is a new constructor, and it's going to create something, but it's going to clean up our data as well, and that's kind of neat about it. And what we're going to clean is this area drop down, and we're going to need to then map that based on the row. So essentially we're doing a map inside this new set here, and that row is going to be equal to whatever index it is. So let's just make sure that we get our index correct, because remember, now that this is no longer a column, this is going to be an array. It's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3. So this is going to be at 3. So let's get rid of this thing. And then let's log this out. And then see what we got. So let's run this again. And let's see, we'll walk through this and figure out what it is. Ooh, that's taking a bit. Okay, so we're essentially, in this last row, we're grabbing all the values in column D. And then we're finding in this last, the length of that, which is giving us 3,299. So that's how many rows we got. Then we're passing that to our get range starting at row 2, column 4, and then we're going down this length for one column, and we're getting the value. So that gives us this clean list of counties, Wisconsin, or state, all of our counties, and then everything in that column essentially. And then what we're doing is we're going to remove the duplicates, and then we're going to remove the duplicates using this new set, and then mapping that based on that column 3 to provide us with, okay, I'm seeing null. So let's figure out what that's about, why it's null. So let's look at what we actually have here. So let's make sure that our original array, okay, this should actually probably be our last row here. So let's come up here and see. Yeah, so it's not our original array. So our original array is, so if we're trying to map this area drop down, it's not going to be our row 3. It's going to be it's not going to be our area drop down, actually, because there is no third index in our area dropdown. It's going to be null, which is what it gave us. So let's think this through here. Okay, so it's our area dropdown, which is what we're trying to, so these are all the values that we're trying to do, and this area dropdown is producing itself an array. And that array, there is no index 3 in our area dropdown, but this area dropdown is a two-dimensional array, so there is no third index, but there is a 0 index. And that 0 index is that next level array. So let's run this at 0 and see how that comes out. Okay, so if we were to look at this area dropdown, which is this one right here, you'll see that it's a two-dimensional array, but what we're trying to give a new set for is that next level array. And then we're trying to go into the 0 index, which is all of this, and then give a new set every single time, which will pull out those things. So let's see if that actually worked. And then we logged out our area DD. So we have a lot of duplicates here. And then, okay, yep, so that did it. So now we have a one-dimensional array from that map of clean Dane County, Wisconsin, this. And now what we can do is actually, instead of logging this, let's sort that to make it in alphabetical order. And then we'll have a nice drop down list of alphabetical order, Appleton, comma, Western. Okay, so we'll have to figure out the different names there, but now it's in alphabetical order that we can pass over to our drop down box, and we can do the same exact thing. Let's get rid of this, and we can do the same exact thing for our job title, and I'll do that off camera. You should be able to do that on your own as well. And then the next video, you'll see that it is complete, and then we'll move this array over, we'll return it, and then populate our drop-down boxes. So that's it for this video, and until next time, please take care.